There we go. Got my channeling crystals in. Each of my crystals are pieces of my altar. They serve official purposes. Altar being not just a place of worship, but for the magician and for the channel, your altar is a machine. And so your crystals become tools. Wow, those work quickly. So I have 2 citrine crystals and a rainbow fluorite. One on my Osiris altar, one on my Buddha. Channel is coming straight in. We have to talk about race. We do. We do. It's never a fun topic. Especially race in the spiritual community. Why? Because until we can decode, declassify, and deconstruct one of the very things separating us, thinking that human beings are not part of the same body, we cannot move together as a totality. You can't get enlightened until you're willing to talk about race. Why? Because it's like talking about gravity. You have a lot of popular gurus these days. YouTube has made gurus of everyone. And so, what are these gurus teaching? And I'm not shitting on anybody. I'm just saying, what are they teaching? They're teaching you to raise your vibration. They're teaching you to raise your vibration so that you can be connected and contacted by the higher realm. And, depending on if you believe in the extraterrestrial interdimensional species, to be contacted by species outside of yourself. Now, the government has given some credence now to the fact that there are UAPs, what we used to call UFOs, right? Unidentified aerial phenomenon, previously classified as unidentified flying objects. They can't even call it that anymore because now people are seeing stars that move closer to them. So it could be argued that that is a different race contacting a different race. That is a different species contacting another species. Do you really think, as a world conglomerate, we are ready to interact with another species when we cannot interact with our own species by disintegrating ourselves into the concept of different races? It's our linchpin. And it's so uncomfortable to talk about that it becomes our block to spiritual communication. Does this mean that you cannot contact the higher beings without being woke? No. No, it does not. What it does mean, though, is that you can limit your message to people that only look like you by not having your eyes open to the fact that you're being exclusionary. Right? I've seen and met a lot of enlightened people from different races whose main following are those who look like them. That's good. That's okay. Right? But then we have to talk about why. Another thing we have to talk about. One of the first things they teach you to invoke, whether it's magic or expanding your consciousness and raising your vibration, is dealing with the archangels. We'll just stick with the core 4 of Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. You look up pictures of all 4 of these angels, and they look like the 1500 versions of the Backstreet Boys. I don't mean any offense by that. I'm just saying that they're all white and they have long, curly hair. They only look like one type of people. Why is that? And why is it important that we ask the question, why are all the angels white? The reason: race is a construct. Okay? If you believe that you are contacting a being and you are looking for a visual cue, and the first thing you look for is for that being to look like what you have ascribed it to look like, there's a pretty good chance you're going to miss contact. There's a pretty good chance you're going to miss contact with Jesus if you think Jesus looks like King James. Why? Does Jesus care about what race you perceive him as? No, you do. You do. And because of that, Jesus might have a hard time getting to you. He might have a hard time getting into your soul. Because compassion is to teach another human being to see another human being as themselves. And if you belong to a population that says, this race bad, this race good, there is an entire field of consciousness you are limiting yourself to because you are expecting it to come from the consciousness that looks like what we consider angelic, which is often white. Now, we could go esoteric and say that all the angels are white because we are representing them as being made out of white light broken down into the spectrum, and that the halo above their head is actually a corona crown of light, and they are white because they are white light beings. All right, that's a safe answer, right? That's real safe. But we have to step beyond that and go, where did we get the classification of these angels anyway? Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, is that their primary first name? Where did we get that? The L at the end of their name, where did we get that? Where do we get our concept of their constructs? That comes from the Catholic Church. You can't talk about angelology and the construction of the Catholic Christian Church at its inception without talking about population control, controlling your population, and creating a chosen people. It's a lot to say. It's a lot to say. What does it mean? It means that people make their gods to look like them. And so if you are going to make a religion and if you are going to control a region, then you want the presiding gods to look like the population that you are controlling and to look like the kings and the ministers that are controlling them. God has to look like the figurehead who has to look like the people. That way you have a direct line from ascendancy to the farmer. If all of your country looks the same, then of course your God is going to look like you. When you conquer another country and take over another territory, the first thing you do is you knock down the statues of their gods and you insert your own. Anciently speaking, this is my God is better than your God. If you want to live, you will worship my God. What are gods? What are angels? They are principalities. They are archetypes. They are grand visages that cannot be embodied, but can be molded after their design. What does that mean? That means you can make the image of Jesus, right? Jesus on the cross, and it represents the four elements, the four seasons, the cross of man. And then that exact same concept getting moved over to the Black Krishna, all right, who looks like his people but also represents the fecund earth, right? The image works with the archetypes that are most used by the people, which are usually tied to their personal culture. When you take over another culture, you bring your culture with them, and you put your gods on top of their gods. You put your people on top of their people, and your God represents the God of your people. All right? Why are all of the angels white? Why is Jesus white? Because their construction and naming was done by the Catholic Church, which is Roman, and it was pushed about by the Europeans, the Spanish, the English, the French, right? They will not be worshiping a darker god. They want their gods to look like their kings. Fast forward to 2021, okay? If you notice, in this New Age movement, in this movement of consciousness, if the speakers, if the gurus are not Asian, and that Asian I mean being of Hindu origin or of, Chinese or, Asian origins, then typically our spiritual leaders are white. Right? It's been that way since the 60s, ever since the Beatles brought over Hindu thought to Western mind. Right? Plus, there's the whole link between the Hindu culture and the Aryan culture. They go, okay, well, we've met in trade before and we look enough alike to where, yeah, I can see you as merely a foreign extended version of myself. Right? So it's easy for you to look at a guru who is, say, a 65-year-old Indian with a long beard who fits the image, or a bald Tibetan monk, or a very blue-eyed, docile white male, and go, okay, this is what guru and enlightenment looks like. This is how it sounds like. It sounds peaceful. It sounds tranquil. It sounds articulate. There is a meter to the speech. There is a look to the face. There is a structure to the continents. And now, whenever you see your gurus and your angels, they only fit a certain bill. This, mankind, is why you are missing so much. Because you are unwilling to admit the truth. Over the last 763 years, there has been a spreading of the European influence over the world as a total. How you spread your influence first comes with the missionaries, then comes with the merchants, then comes the military. You send them your God, then you send them your goods, then you bring them your guns. Anybody who's not willing to get down with what you're talking about or bend the knee to your God finds themselves as the status of Saracen or heretic, and they die. And this is the fate of the martyr. Right? But we don't see them as being martyrs for holding on to their belief. We see them as being outdated or as the enemy. Right? Well, guess what? The inevitable happened. Europe won. Okay? 700 years in comparison to all of time immemorial is a blip on the radar. 700 years, 400 years, 150 years, 80 years ain't nothing to God. Okay? It only means something to us. It only means something to us. So what has happened is that with this political spreading of European influence over the world by utilizing their church, their trade, and then their military, we get an image of God. And so whenever God comes through the mouth of the people who look like what we expect, we say yes, they fit the bill. When it comes from the mouth of somebody we do not know or expect, we say no. And God likes to work through everybody. The grand architect does not operate on a chosen people status. He does not pick one race. She does not pick one race. We do that. That's us. Right? So, now, ascension has become commodity in pop culture. And what still sells to this day, and I'm sorry to say it, is your skin. Whether you are white, which is the cream of the crop, or you're the ideal immigrant, which is, Asian. If you're not these things, you're not being heard. You're not being heard for your intellectual capabilities. And the reason why is because there is a covering of the eyes and the mouth when it comes to talking about race. Until you can get over your racism, you're not ready for angels. What happens when one drops down and they're black? You're ready for a blue angel. You're ready for a green angel. You're ready for something that doesn't look like you. Are you ready? Are you ready for a species to interact with our species from a place of what we would consider superiority, and for them to have dark skin? Will they be welcomed, or will they be seen as a threat? Think about that. Why are black people having such a hard time all over the world? Is it possible? Is it really possible that an entire genetic race would be so inferior that the entire species, because apparently there's something different from human, that the entire species would be in a degraded and tribal state? No, it is not possible. In fact, there was a good deal of time, when you look at the Moors, when those we would consider black actually ran Europe. As a total, Spain, the Moors, they were the keepers of the knowledge whenever the Black Plague was going on. They were building Alhambra. They were connecting with the gods. They were writing in poetry. Okay? Egypt does not look like what it used to. And it's not about, well, oh, was Egypt black? Was it white? Was it Middle Eastern? Was it Mediterranean? Egypt was like Brazil. And if you really think that you can be connected to Africa at the time of when they have like vast amounts of wealth, power, and resources, and that Egypt did not have a strong black population in the place where black people come from, you're lying to yourself. Once upon a time, those that you call black and those that you call Arab and Muslim were the superpower of the world. The problem isn't just about whose kingdom and whose God overrules whose concept of right is right. The problem is how strong of a genetic specimen melanated skin really is. America's got the one drop rule. What do you think that means? It means that black blood is so strong that if you even have a drop of it, you're considered a nigga. Sorry for the language. I know you hate that word, but listen. It's easy to underestimate a nigga. They never see you coming. And so it is the fear of these people coming back and doing what they did, which was rule, which was share technology, which was thrive, because there is a fear of them becoming a genetic threat to those they interact with. Because black genes are very strong, and when you have a half-black baby, there's a good chance that it's going to show up really strong in their features. That can snuff out your national and racial identity. And so when you've built your gods off of your race, you do not want to introduce anything that might dilute that. And so you have to build an entire social, philosophical, psychological architecture that makes dark the enemy and uncredible. You have to create a language that says all things white are good and wholesome and clean and pure, and all things black are dark and evil and murky and chaotic. And so thus those with dark skin and being from a black land are chaotic, dark beings. If you're going to uphold this story and maintain control over the resources, then you have to make sure that they can never compete with your narrative or your resources or your genes. You have to take over their country. You have to take over their resources. You have to break them up. You have to keep them from organizing. You have to keep their population low. You have to keep their education low. You have to keep their status low. You have to make them undesirable. You have to make them a threat. You have to make them other. Because one drop of their blood can change your entire societal construct. And so, to keep it safe, your gods are Snow White. And then you take over the world and you give them your Snow White god. And so you expect to see the gurus that look like your god, or like the other people that your god accepts as being godlike. East and West. This is the bifurcation of going, we are the West being white, and these are the East being Asian as in like mainland China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Cambodia, but then also of course like India, Pakistan. That region is the East and the West, making up the totality of the civilized world. And then somewhere in there, you get Hispanics and you get black people who are what? Coming up. Hispanics are known for being hard workers, but they're not, because I'm Hispanic as well, are not known for being intellectual, even though if you take any time to look at Chichen Itza, to look at what the Aztecs and the Mayans built, you will understand that you are sorely mistaken. If you take any time to look into what is left of African history, you will realize that these people are actually brilliant. But we don't. The reason why is because we have been ascribed to pay attention to what we know and find authority on what we see on our screens. And what do we see on our screens? What is the primary skin color of commodity? It's white. White is the color across the world that sells. I'm not being racist, I'm being real. They have something in China called Rent a White Guy, and that is, he doesn't have to know anything from anything, right? But because it is not, to give additional ethos, he'll speak for you. He'll take your subject matter and then he'll do the talking for you, because it's known that people will listen to a white speaker with more ethos, with more sense of, yeah, he might be onto something, than they will, say, a Chinese man with a thick accent, or a Chinese man in general, or a black man, or, I don't know, Indians are coming up, but that's just because they're running all of technology, and there's so many, and they're so smart, and now they are the new ideal minority, right? But like 20 years ago, you had what, like, the stereotype was that they were running 7-Elevens and Quickie Marts. If the angels and the aliens that come down to this planet don't look like little green spacemen, but are actually humanoid and look like something like, Aztecs or ancient Cometian Egyptians, i.e. read black, look at something like Stargate, are you going to accept them? Or are you going to shoot at them? Are you going to see them as angels, or are you going to see them as devils? Are you going to listen to them? Will their words be respected? This is why there is a limitation on how much contact this planet is getting, because it feels like the only people you'll listen to... Do I need to finish that statement? Fix your race problem. Fix your race problem and then we'll help you. Because if you don't fix your race problem, we can't help you. And if you don't fix your race problem, we don't want to help you. Because remember, those that you would consider an inferior race due to your knowledge of your history and how you perceive them every day on your screen, how do you think we feel, being of the higher intelligence, watching you human beings on the planet Earth scramble about in all of your nonsense? If you're going to treat another race as if they are inferior, then you should not be looking to the skies for help, because you're inviting another race to treat you as inferior. And maybe that's why everybody's scared of intergalactic committee. That's why we have Space Watch. That's why we're afraid that aliens want to take our planet. It's not that we're scared that they want to kill us, it's that we're scared that they're better than us and we don't like our place in the food chain question. Until you can really take a look at race and understand how it works as a societal construct that has been invented, you're gonna miss a lot of boats. And yes, while there are a lot of gurus and a lot of ascended spirits who do inhabit white bodies, right? Because they can't inhabit anybody. There's also a lot of people who are going to be acting like they are more enlightened than they are, and they will be able to get in front of people and galvanize them simply because they look important. Most of your ascended people, tarot card readers, channels, all of that, you go onto YouTube, the most successful ones are white people still. What does that mean? We still think white people are the chosen one. You might be missing out on an entire other voice because you're still going to what sells. This has been the message for the day. The kids playing around the neighborhood lets me know that it's time to go. This ain't a channel for popularity. This is a channel for us to do the work. Because for those of you who are watching this video, you know that you've been called. Some of you know to what? The rest of you are still just in for the ride. It's time to open our eyes and step into the age of Aquarius in the 21st century. It's time to step into our dominion. But first that means leaving behind everything that we thought we knew. And that includes race. So until next time, midnight out.